The movie begins with Natasha Kampusch at a bar with her father, Natasha, a young girl of around 10 years old, witnesses her father getting drunk and forgets to take her home early for school. Natasha arrives home late and sleeps for a few hours before her mother wakes her up and makes her get dressed for school. Natasha has breakfast with her mother, who warns her that the bar is not a place for children. She threatens that if her father brings her back late again, it will be the last time she allows her to go out with him. Natasha disagrees with her mother and is rude, but her mother hits her on the face with a pen. Her mother apologizes for her actions, but Natasha is upset and leaves the house without eating breakfast. On her way to school, Natasha cries because of what her mother did. Suddenly, a man named Wolfgang Pricklapiel gets out of his van and approaches her. He kidnaps her, makes her unconscious, and takes her to a hidden room under his house. Natasha wakes up and finds herself in a small, dark room with no windows or sunlight. The only source of ventilation is a fan on the wall. There is a sink and a toilet seat, but nothing else. Wolfgang enters the room and gives Natasha a small mattress to sleep on. He brings her food and water and leaves without saying a word. He locks the door behind him. Natasha tries to open the door, but it's tightly closed. She screams for help, but no one can hear her. The room is underground, and it's impossible for anyone to hear her screams. On the third day, Wolfgang brings stories and comes down to read them to Natasha. He also brings her favorite biscuits. He steps out of the room to let her eat, but Natasha stops him and asks for a goodnight kiss. Just like her mother used to do, Wolfgang is surprised by Natasha's request, but agrees and kisses her on the forehead before leaving the room. Natasha is left alone in the darkness, wondering what will happen. News of Natasha's abduction spreads on all channels, and people talk about it. Wolfgang is at home when his mother arrives, who comes every day to clean the house and cook for him. They watch the news together, and when news about Natasha appears, his mother asks who could kidnap and assault a little girl, pretending that Wolfgang doesn't know anything and acts shocked, suggesting that the kidnapper might be insane. One day, Wolfgang takes Natasha downstairs to wash her hair. She gives him a letter to send to her family, so they won't worry about her. While washing her hair, she asks him to allow her to go back home. He gets angry and tells her that her family understands she's being held for ransom. If they cared about their daughter, they would have paid the ransom. He also says that they don't care about her, and her presence with them doesn't matter. In response, Natasha tells him that he's a liar. He gets angry at her, especially when he hears her crying. He starts to choke her and drown her in the sink water. He asks her to stop crying and clean the water on the floor. He leaves and locks her up. One day, Wolfgang is sitting in his garden with his mother when the police arrive. They search his car and ask him questions about Natasha's kidnapping, but they don't find anything conclusive, especially after seeing Wolfgang's family with him at home. The next day, Natasha is asleep and dreaming of her family and how much she misses them. She feels like she will never see them again. Wolfgang enters and wakes her up to eat. Natasha asks him for a watch to count the hours and days she has been kidnapped. Wolfgang agrees if she behaves well in the coming period. Wolfgang installs a phone in the room for communication between him and Natasha. Natasha wonders if Wolfgang feels lonely being free as she feels being kidnapped. But Wolfgang doesn't know how to answer. He leaves his room and keeps thinking about Natasha's question. He tears up her letter, and days pass. Day number 183 arrives, and Natasha plays and stumbles around the room. She plays with herself as if she were at school. She draws a handle on the door and a room on the wall because she doesn't see or interact with anyone other than Wolfgang. While she is playing, Wolfgang talks to her. He asks her if she has brushed her teeth and cleaned the dishes she ate from. He keeps asking her to listen to him, showing the extent of his mental illness and deficiency. The next day, Natasha takes leftover food and puts it on her arm, pretending to have a skin disease. When Wolfgang enters with her food, Natasha shows him her arm and asks him to take her to the doctor for examination. When Wolf discovered Natasha's charade, he decided to punish her by withholding food for extended periods. His violence towards her escalated, as he would scream at her saying, "Scream all you want, no one will hear you." He would taunt her by showing her the exit door, only to slam it shut and leave her alone in the darkness 4 days past without Natasha consuming any food. She spoke to Wolf through the intercom, asking him to bring her food, but he ignored her. She cried out, "I want to go home," to which Wolf replied, "Shut up and do as I say." 4 years had passed since Natasha's abduction, and the situation remained unchanged. Wolf continued to deprive her of food for 3 or 4 consecutive days. Natasha would plead with him every day, but he would only repeat, "Be quiet." Natasha's body became extremely thin, and her bones protruded due to malnutrition and the psychological pressure she had been enduring for 4 years. She missed the sunlight, and Wolf had convinced her that the doors and windows were rigged with bombs, and that she would die if she tried to escape. On one occasion, Wolf allowed her to accompany him to the bathroom, where she saw sunlight for the first time in 4 years. One day, Wolf's mother noticed a blonde hair on his clothes, leading her to believe he had a girlfriend. After his mother left, Wolf brought a shaving machine and shaved Natasha's hair completely 5 years after Natasha's abduction. Christmas arrived, and she celebrated it alone. Her spirit remained unbroken, and she continued to fight for her freedom. As she did every year, Natasha decorated her room and put up a Christmas tree to feel the joy she so desperately craved. Wolf entered, carrying food, dressed in an elegant suit and with a video camera to document the moment she opened her gifts. He brought her a music player and 3 famous novels. Natasha asked him to let her call her family, but he became angry and told her to consider them dead. Months later, Wolf decided to sleep with Natasha in his room, tying her hands to his to prevent her from escaping while they slept. Later, Wolf went away to ski, leaving Natasha alone in the room. She asked him to take her next time, promising she would behave better. Wolf agreed, but locked her in the room. After returning from his trip one night, Wolf went to a party, trying to mingle with people, but returned home due to his mental illness and need for solitude. He raped Natasha on his bed, and she, feeling powerless, submitted. Afterward. She asked him to take her to his house's garden at night. Wolf agreed, but panicked when someone saw her, deciding to return her to her room. Natasha tried to resist, but he grabbed her forcefully, cut the rope that bound her to him, and threw her into the room. 5.5 years after Natasha's abduction, Wolf began to enslave her, forcing her to do housework. He would beat her and call her a stupid dog. He would cook food, starve her for days, and then eat in front of her. One time, Natasha ate some of Wolf's food, and he grabbed her, beat her, pulled the food out of her mouth before she could swallow it, and threw her in the room without any food. Months later, Wolf decided to take Natasha out and bought her new clothes. He threatened to kill her with the gun he was carrying if she tried to escape. They arrived at a building supplies store to choose a paint color for his room. Wolf left Natasha alone, but she was unable to escape. She kept hearing Wolf's voice threatening her until he returned. They went back home. Months later, Wolf showed Natasha his room after the renovations he had done, which Natasha herself had worked on. A few days later, Natasha heard the news on the radio, where they mentioned that they believed Natasha might be dead. She felt depressed in her room, but Wolf wouldn't leave her alone. Natasha asked why he chose her specifically to kidnap, and Wolf told her he first kidnapped her when he saw her smile as a little girl in a shop while she was eating a biscuit. He kept digging and building her room underground for 8 months straight. One day, Natasha decided to commit suicide because she could no longer bear living with the rapist Wolf. She brought tissues and set the room on fire to suffocate and die. But her survival instinct took over, so she put out the fire and closed the room to get rid of the smoke. Wolf discovered her suicide attempt and beat her severely. He continued to terrorize her, and she was unable to defend herself. Natasha kept counting the number of times Wolf hit her and wrote them down on the tissues. Months later, Wolf took Natasha with him on a skiing trip to the icy hills. Natasha's body was too thin to move, and she was unable to stand to ski. She kept falling, and she wanted to go to the bathroom. Wolf made sure that there was nobody in the bathroom so that Natasha wouldn't try to communicate with him. However, he didn't find anyone in the bathroom. Wolf allowed Natasha to enter the bathroom, and when she did, she heard the voice of another woman next to her. Natasha came out of the bathroom and told the woman that she was Natasha Kampusch, who had been kidnapped 8 years ago, and asked her to come with her. but the woman in the bathroom spoke Russian and didn't understand her language. Natasha came out of the bathroom and Wolf saw her, so he took her and they left. In the car, Wolf asked her what she had said to the woman in the bathroom, but she said she hadn't said anything. So Wolf punched her hard in the face and continued to beat her all over her body. He told her that she shouldn't lie to him. Natasha went back to her room and wrote down the number of blows she had received that day and put the napkins she had written on in a large box full of napkins containing memories of 8 years of beatings. On Natasha's 18th birthday, Wolf celebrated with her and brought her a dress. She danced with him under duress because her body had become too weak to move or stand. The next day, Wolf wanted to sell his car because he needed money, so he asked Natasha to clean it inside and out so he could sell it. He also asked her to wear her birthday dress and clean it. Wolf received a phone call and went to answer it in a remote place with a network. Natasha took the opportunity and saw that the garden gate was open. She felt scared to run away, but she didn't care what would happen anymore. She finally walked out the door and ran away quickly and fearfully. Natasha reached a stranger's house and told the woman who lived there that she had been kidnapped. The woman then called the police and told them that Natasha Kampusch, who had been kidnapped 8 years ago, had finally escaped. The police spoke to Natasha's mother and told her that they had found her daughter. Wolf wrote a letter saying that Natasha had escaped and then committed suicide. Finally, Natasha met her family after a separation that lasted 3,096 days. We have reached the end of the summary. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching.